Hello everybody. Today in this video I am going to explain the story The Enemy from Star's textbook. The story is written by Parles Buck. So let's start from the story, the explanation of this story. So first of all we are going to start from the theme of the story. The theme of story is based on the dilemma of a Japanese doctor who is also the protagonist of this story, Dr. Sadao Hoki. He is a Japanese doctor and the story is based on his dilemma. Dilemma is his confusion of the mind, and he is torn apart between two choices, two equally important choices. He comes in contact of an American soldier who is seriously wounded at the time of World War between Japan and America, and this Japanese doctor could not think what he should do at this spot. And there are two options before him: national consideration and human consideration. If he helps this enemy who is seriously injured, then he would be called a traitor, and under the rule of emergency he might be punished also. And on the other hand, there is another choice for him. He as a doctor should show humanity and should save the life of this wounded American soldier, and in that way he could be called a traitor. And if he leave this wounded American soldier on the mercy of God, he would die. And these are the two choices before him. What should he do? And second main point of the story is Sadao's father. In this story, Sadao's father is described as a patriotic Japanese who always wanted that Japanese soldiers should get back the islands which were captured by American army back from America. And in Sadao's childhood, he used to take him at the Japanese coast, where he used to show Sadao Hoki as a child some islands which were in the possession of American armies, and Sadao's father wanted that those islands should be taken back by Japanese armies in the future. They are the stepping stones to the future for Japan, he used to say. And his chief concern when Sadao grew older, his chief concern was that Sadao should get higher education and should become a prominent person in his life. So that's why, to study surgery and medicines, he sent his son to America when Sadao was 22 years old. And for 8 years Sadao studied in America surgery and medicines. And after becoming not only as the topmost surgeon of Japan, his country, but also a scientist, he returned from America. Thus he fulfilled the dream of his father. And Sadao, during his study in America, fell in love with Hana, who was also a Japanese, and he wanted to marry her. But Sadao's father agreed only after confirming that Hana was really a traditional and Japanese girl by mind and spirit and thoughts. And after confirmation that she was truly a Japanese girl, he became ready for the marriage of Sadao with Hana. Next main point is Sadao's dilemma and convincing the servants. When Sadao comes in contact of seriously injured American soldier, and after coming to know that he was a prisoner of war, there was a dilemmatic situation before him. What should he do? What should he do? Whether he should help him as a doctor and should show humanity and should save his life, and under this condition he might be called a traitor, and his career might be ruined, and there may be some difficulty in future for his wife and children in case he was stamped as a traitor. And another condition was that if he leave this seriously injured American soldier on God's mercy, then the patient would die because of heavy bleeding. So there were two options before him: whether he should show loyalty to nation as a Japanese, or he should show loyalty to humanity as a doctor. So finally he could not decide anything, and there was confusion before his wife Hana also, when they saw that sailor of American Navy lying before them faint and unconscious Finally, they decided that they should take him home and should give him some treatment. And but there was a problem that they have to convince the servants, because servants would object that there was an enemy in their house. So they decided that they would convince the servants by saying that they would hand this enemy over to the Japanese police after providing some first aid, after providing some treatment. When he recover well, so then they would hand him over after a few days to Japanese police. Thus they brought that enemy to their home. Next main point is superstition of the old gardener. So there was an old gardener working in Sadaos' house since the time of his father, and that old gardener had a superstition, had a belief, unscientific belief, that in case Sadao helped the American soldier and saved his life, then Japanese sea and Japanese police would take revenge upon them. They would take revenge upon them because both the Japanese police almost killed this American, and Japanese sea also has tried to kill him. But now their master, Dr. Sadao, was trying to save the life of this American soldier. In that case, Gardner had a superstition that both Japanese police and Japanese sea would take revenge upon them. Next main point is disobedience by Yumi. Disobedience by Yumi. Yumi is the maid servant working in Sadao's house, and Dr. Sadao Hoki wanted that to save the life of American, it was necessary to operate him. So before the operation, he wanted that he should be washed because his body was stained with blood and dirt. So that's why he wanted that a bucket of water should be brought, so that the American should be washed before the operation. Hana, Sadao's wife, gave this order to Yumi, the maid servant, to bring a bucket of warm water and wash the American. But Yumi, the maid servant, showed disobedience, showed stubbornness, and she refused even to touch an American, a white man, because he was his enemy. This was the first time that she showed this kind of disobedience, because it was an American, their enemy. So in this way, the conviction of superiority, conviction matlab belief of superiority of Hana shattered, broken into pieces, because her servant denied to follow her order. So to maintain her conviction of superiority, she herself, Hana herself, was the dirty American just for the sake of her husband. Next main point is Hana's devotion to her husband. In this story, we see that there is a devotion shown by Hana to her husband in many ways. Whatever she is doing with the American, this is not because of humanity or any duty or any loyalty to humanity. Whatever she is doing with this American, this is actually her devotion to her husband. She helped her husband to bring this unconscious American from Japanese coast to home, and she also washed the body of the dirty American before the operation. She also gave anesthetic treatment when her husband wanted that during the operation anesthetic treatment should be given. And when the enemy also recovered, she also fed him with a spoon. She also took great care of this American, not because of humanity or any sense of duty, but this is all because of her devotion to her husband, because she is a traditional wife. She is showing her devotion to her husband. Next main point is cruelty of General Takima. When she was washing the dirty American, she saw many scars and wounds on the body of the American, and looking at these wounds and scars, she started remembering about the cruelty of Japanese soldiers and General Takima of Japanese army. She remembered that there were some rumors that General Takima was so cruel that he used to beat his wife at home, and there were many news and there are also many conversation by the people that General Takima of Japanese army was very cruel. So she remembered that these news were true, because this prisoner of war was also tortured badly, and there were many scars and wounds on his body because he was a prisoner of war. But she also remembered that how General Takima, after the victory at the Battle of Manchuria, became so much popular and famous that people of Japan welcomed him gladly. So this is the main point. And next main point is teaching by American professors. So when Dr. Sadaos started operating the American, she started remembering the teaching of American professors. In flashback, he went back in the classrooms when he studied in America for 8 years. He remembered that a Japanese professor used to say that a surgeon should have complete knowledge of every atom of human body. And without the complete knowledge of human body, if any surgeon is operating a patient, this will not be an operation, but it will be just a murder. So that American professor used to insist that surgeon should have complete knowledge of human body, and ignorance of human body is a cardinal sin for a surgeon. And he also remembered the teaching of another American professor who used to say that a surgeon should always show mercy with surgeon's knife. Surgeon's knife should be used for saving the life of a patient. So keeping in mind all these teachings of American professors, he started operating the American. He also had a habit of addressing the unconscious patient lying before him as his friend. So this is the way of Dr. Sadaos to treat a patient. Next main point is feeling of security in enemy's mind after surgery. So the operation was successful, and Dr. Sadaos very dexterously, very skillfully pulled out the bullet which was dangerously stuck near the kidney of the American. The operation was successful, and Dr. Sadaos also declared that this person would live in spite of all. The operation was successful, and when the American, whose name is Tom, when he recovered well and gained senses, he found himself between the Japanese couple. First he became very much terrified, finding himself between the Japanese who were enemy to Americans. But after a while, Hana, Sadaos' wife, pacified him and requested him to cool down. Then he became cool down, and after coming to know that these Japanese couple can speak English and they also had studied in his country, America, for 8 years, he became so much secured. He felt so much secure that he didn't have any fear in his mind now that he was in enemy's house. And it was because he knew that the doctors trained in his country, America, were shown sentimentality, to show sentimentality towards the patients. That's why he was confirmed and secure that these Japanese couple who are trained in his country, America, would certainly show sentimentality towards him. That's why there was a feeling of security in his mind. Next main point is doubts and reaction of servants. When Dr. Sadaos saved the life of the enemy and the operation was successful, and even after that Dr. Sadaos and Hana had not handed him over to the Japanese police as they had promised earlier, and they also started treating him and giving him spoon feeding, and they were taking utmost care of that American. Then there was doubt in the mind of the domestic staff, the servants of Dr. Sadaos Hoki. They started doubting that the Japanese couple had started thinking like Americans, because they had studied in America both of them had studied in America for 8 years, and that's why they had started thinking like Americans. So they thought that they have thinking like Americans, they have sympathy for Americans, and this was the doubts and reaction of the servants. And old Gardner wanted that he should not have saved, or Sadaos Hoki should not have saved the life of American. He should let him die because of heavy bleeding during the operation. And the lady cook was also there in his house. Lady cook doubted that Dr. Sadaos was very much proud of his skill of saving life. So much proud of his skill that he saved any life. So in this way, lady cook wanted that Dr. Sadaos should differentiate between enemy and his Japanese. So actually it should not happen with a doctor, that a doctor should differentiate between, but lady cook wanted that Dr. Sadaos should have shown prejudiced behavior with this enemy, must not have saved his life. He should not be so much proud of his skill. And Yumi, the maid servant, reacted that Dr. Sadaos should think about the future and career and future of his children and his wife and children, in case he would be called a traitor, and then what would happen of the family. So this was the reaction of the servants. And next main point is two remarkable incidents on the seventh day. So after the arrival of this enemy American in the house of Dr. Sadaos, 7 days has passed, and after 7 days, two remarkable incidents happened. The first remarkable incident was that all the servants left their job. The old gardener, the lady cook, and Yumi, the maid servant, all three servants observed that even after 7 days, as per the promise, Dr. Sadaos had not handed him over to the Japanese police, but still they are taking great care of this enemy. So they became revolting, so much revolting that they decided to leave their jobs because of the fear of being caught by Japanese police for sheltering and harboring an enemy. Under the emergency rule, it was a punishable crime. So that's why they left their jobs. And said that they would not return to this house as long as this enemy was lying there. And next, another incident, remarkable incident happened, that arrival of a policeman. So in the morning, all the servants left their job, and in the afternoon, a policeman in uniform came to Sadaos' house. Hannah saw that a policeman was coming to their house. She became so much terrified. Became so much terrified that she thought that probably the servants had reported everything to the Japanese police. That's why this policeman had come, because an enemy was residing in their house. She became very much terrified. But after a while, she came to know that he was actually a messenger sent by the general, because general wanted Dr. Sadaos for his treatment. Then she became satisfied. Next main point is general's reaction on enemy's matter. When Dr. Sadaos went to general for his treatment, he told everything. He did not hide anything from the General Takema. He told everything to general, that there was an enemy in his house and he had provided his treatment and saved his life, and 7 days has passed, and as a part of his loyalty to nation, he did this. He did not hide anything from general. And after coming to know that an enemy was provided shelter by his favorite doctor, Dr. Sadaos, and he could not do anything. He could not punish Dr. Sadaos, because actually he was undergoing a treatment of his gallbladder, and for this he wanted the best surgeon, and he was dependent on Dr. Sadaos. That's why he could not punish Dr. Sadaos, but rather he decided that he said about combining two foreign elements, American sentimentality with German ruthlessness. American sentimentality had already been shown by Dr. Sadaos by saving the life of this enemy, and now general wanted that German ruthlessness matlab this is opposite of sentimentality, and cruelty, stone-heartedness, hard-heartedness, and should be shown by Dr. Sadaos. German ruthlessness. So at that time, doctors trained in Germany were not sentimental. They were considered ruthless toward the patient, and doctors trained in America were sentimental, and sentimentality had already been shown by Dr. Sadaos by saving the life of this enemy, and now general wanted that ruthlessness should be shown, some stone-heartedness, some cruelty should be shown to this enemy. So that's why he gave an idea to Dr. Sadaos. The idea was that he would send his private assassins. He said about sending private assassins. He would send these two of his private assassins to kill the enemy at Sadaos' house. He just instructed Dr. Sadaos that Sadaos will have to keep the door of enemy's room open in the night, and his capable private assassins would come. They were very capable and expert in giving inward bleeding, and they would also remove the dead body of the enemy from his house. The Sadaos had to do just that. He would keep the door of his enemy's room open in the night, and private assassins, private killers sent by general would come to Sadaos' house in the night, and they would kill the enemy. This is enemy, and enemy should be killed at any cost. It's no matter that Sadaos has saved his life. So this was the decision taken by the general, and Sadaos became agree on this decision by the general. Next, Sadaos' decision to let the enemy escape. Sadao waited for the arrival of the private assassins to be sent by the general for 2 or 3 consecutive nights, and he kept the door of enemy's room open also, and during night he could not sleep, and at every sound he used to wake up and think that the private assassins had come and probably the murder was taking place in the room. And he also did not let his wife Hannah go in enemy's room or to see what is happening whenever there was any sound in the night. Sadao was every time terrified. He became so much terrified that sometime he used to wake up, and his wife also become terrified seeing her husband terrified. So in this way Sadao spent 3 restless nights. He could not sleep. His family also became disturbed, and no assassins, no private assassins came to murder the American. Every morning he found the American lying there alive. So finally he took a decision that he should let the enemy escape for the safety and security of himself. He could lead a peaceful life, and life of the enemy could also be saved. He took a decision that he should allow the enemy escape from his house. Instructions by Sadao to the enemy. So he told his plan to the enemy, to the American, whose name is Tom, who is a prisoner of war. He told him that it was no more safe neither for him or nor for the enemy. So he gave him some instructions that he has arranged a boat for him, and this boat has been filled with certain stuff, water bottles, food, and blankets, quilts, and he should go to the nearby island where nobody lives, and after reaching to that island the enemy should wait for the Korean fishing boat, and in that Korean fishing boat he could take a lift and could go to his nation America, and he should stay there as long as the Korean fishing boat arrives, and he take a lift to go to his country America in that Korean fishing boat. He also instructed him that he should not make a fire there. He should if food runs short, he should just catch some raw fish and eat them raw, but should not make a fire, otherwise his presence on that island could be noticed by Japanese soldiers. He also advised him that he should give signals, 1 signal daily in the evening for his well-being, and 2 signals if he needs something. He gave him his emergency light for this purpose. So this way he instructed him, and he suggested him to go to on that island with the help of a boat. Thus he saved his life again. Next main point is general's attitude after enemy's escape. So after a while general operation of gallbladder was successfully accomplished by Dr. Sadao, and when he recovered well after the surgery, so Dr. Sadao told everything about the escape of the enemy. He told him that the enemy had escaped from his house because the door was lying open as per the advice and order given by general himself, but no assassins came, and getting opportunity of the door lying open, the enemy had escaped from his house. General thought that it was actually his own mistake, because he promised Dr. Sadao to send his private assassins to kill that enemy. So General knew that Dr. Sadao was his favorite doctor, and he had not sent him to the war with Japanese troops because of his operation. Now he thought that it is his own mistake now. It is his own mistake because he forgot to send his private assassins. So he started giving clarifications to Dr. Sadao, clarification that it is not the lack of national loyalty, this is also not the lack of his duty, or not it is a human consideration. He had not shown any humanity on that enemy, but it is just his self-absorption, because he became so much busy in his own personal matter, in his own personal illness and his operation and post recovery, that he forgot. So he clarified this way, and this is not lack of his duty or national loyalty nor human consideration. So he also suggested Sadao, in case the matter open in future, he would also explain in that way that this happened because of the self-absorption in his personal illness. So General was very happy with Dr. Sadao, and he also tried to please him that he was a very good person, and he also had showed national loyalty, and he promised him to reward. Next main point is Sadao's hatred for all Americans. Sadao got his actual reward the same evening when he found that there was no signal from that island. It means the enemy had gone away safe and secure from there. This was the actual reward for him, that he succeeded in saving the life of the enemy. And now he is sitting in his house. He started thinking about all Americans. The American landlady in her house he lived, and she provided him room to live even after prejudiced and biased behavior of Americans against Japanese at the time of World War. She also took a great care of Dr. Sadao when he fell ill and was caught in influenza. Even then she took utmost care, and Japanese professors were also very kind and sympathetic to the Japanese students who were foreigners, and every professor taught him well, and every American who came in contact of Dr. Sadao, they were actually very sympathetic and caring. Even then he is hating them now after the successful operation of the enemy. And finally he remembered the face of the enemy, the American, the prisoner of war, whose name is Tom, and after remembering his face he surprised, he was very much amazed that he wondered why he could not kill that American, he was wondering, and he regretted that, he felt sorry that he could not save that American. So this is the dilemma of Dr. Sadao, and story ends again with the dilemma. He succeeded in saving the life of the American, but finally he regretted that why he could not kill him. So this is the end of the story, the enemy, and I hope that you would have liked this video, and thank you. Have a nice day. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.